jokes, I would have to steal from what you singers are doing. Is that okay?
Or you could just be
All right.
nosy and just do music puns.
Hello, everyone at home. So as we mentioned before, we have a very long intermission, and I wanted to explain a little bit about why that is. So if you're wondering, why are we waiting so long for the second half? It boils down to aerosols. And as we sing, we release a lot of aerosols. Even with the mask, they kind of go all around. We've been studying a lot of aerodynamics, and I feel like a physicist, even though I'm not. But one of the things that we've learned is that these particles kind of fill the air over time. And about 30 minutes in any given space is about as long as we want to spend. And so even singing with masks, we're limited to about 30 minutes of singing time, not counting the applause and other things. We are really blessed, though, that this space is the perfect time. So all the air goes out the top, and that means that we can just wait about 30 minutes and we should be good to go for the second half. So that's a good segue to talk about some of the changes we've made. If you're wondering, how are you having a choir in the middle of a pandemic? Well, we've made a lot of changes. So Professor Brown, what have you been doing with Rivertones to help with that?
Well, with the Rivertones this year, one thing we've done is we've split up into octets on a few of our numbers so that we could be in smaller amount of people and then do 30-minute intervals in a room like we're doing tonight. It's been an interesting challenge, but I think it's been a learning experience too, because a lot of the assistant directors have had more hands-on with the choir, which has been really a great thing. And we, of course, wore masks, and we've got ourselves situated, social distancing and making sure the aerosols are going in front of us, and we're not in circles like a traditional choir or on risers or close together. So it's been challenging in that. I think students have had to become individual musicians more than maybe in the past, because they're having to hold their own because they're not close to each other. So.
We've even explored some new spaces for rehearsals. So we normally are in the chapel or in our concert hall here, and we've been in Frisch Welcome Center, we've been in Gooding Auditorium, places that don't have as great of acoustics, but there's a lot more space, and that's really for the safety. So now that you can't hear anyone, you really have to know your part and be ready to sing it. I think it's helped a lot of our singers to develop that. Tell us about some of the pieces that the Rivertones did that, especially some that were really exciting for you to prepare.
One in particular was the Bésame Mucho. You know, it is based on a bolero style, a Spanish dance style, and it was written by Consuelo Velázquez, who was 16 years old when she wrote that piece. It's out of all the boleros that are done, it is the one that is done more than any other piece. It's been done in almost every language you can imagine. It's been sung by the Beatles. It's been sung by classical singers. What really inspired me to do it is that she wrote that and had never been kissed. And the song's all about being kissed. She was inspired by seeing a couple kissing on the streets in Mexico City. The other thing that inspired me to work on this piece was Kirby Shaw. He's like one of the legends of vocal jazz arranging. He's done so many pieces. In fact, he did 3 of the pieces that we did tonight. So that was another reason why I was really inspired to do it.
I wanted to share a little bit about 2 pieces on the concert tonight that are by Randall Thompson. The opener tonight, Last Words of David, is one that I've sung a couple of times before. I've played it a couple of times before. And being able to lead it here, it's really one of those touchstone pieces that we tend to come back to in the repertoire every so many years, because it just takes on such a journey. And you're going to hear that in the second half as well. The opening to the second half is Tarantella. And the Tarantella is a dance from Italy, and it was originally intended to drive out the venom of a poisonous spider bite. So if you're bitten by a tarantula, you would do this dance, and theoretically, if you danced hard enough and fast enough, your body would expel the poison. In this story, though, in this case, the poison isn't a spider bite, it's memory loss. And as the person telling the story is desperately trying to remind his beloved of their last great vacation to Spain. And it just keeps bringing up all of these memorable moments. and alas, she just can't remember any of it. And it's a harrowing story, and it is a bit depressing. That's why it starts, it doesn't end the show. But listen to the journey, and you will hear so many references to Spain. There's a quotation from the famous tune Malagueña in the middle. And it's just a really gorgeous portrayal of this person's earnest fighting, the battle with this disease that they just can't seem to overcome. So listen for that in the second half, and you can compare two Randall Thompson pieces on the same show. What else are you really excited about from this?
The other piece I was very excited about doing again was Everybody's Poppin'.
That was fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You know, it's based on jazz vocalese as opposed to jazz scat, where you take a melody that's already been written and you actually put words to it as opposed to scat, which is all just syllables with no meaning. It was written by John Hendricks of Hendricks, Lampert, and Ross. They were the biggest of the vocalese jazz groups back in the late 1950s, early 1960s. I think it was a great challenge for the group. They really took it on, and they actually met the metronome markings, the tempo that we wanted. I was really very impressed with that.
That's quite a challenge.
Yes, it is. It is. And it was also great to add some scat in there for some of the soloists to have a chance to do that. Yeah, it's just a great, great piece by John Hendricks.
Awesome. I wanted to say a word about, there's one other piece coming up in the second half that needs a bit of introduction, because it's a really amazing work that we're going to be singing technically for the second time. We did it on Wednesday, but really a big moment tonight for a piece called Abraham Lincoln Walks at Midnight. It's by our own Professor Emeritus, Dr. William Shermer, who's here in the audience. Hello. And we were so glad and honored to get to work with him this afternoon as we were in our dress rehearsal. It is a piece that is not in traditional tonal language, but because of that, it is the perfect setting for this text, as it depicts a ghostly Abraham Lincoln walking about the town of Springfield, Illinois. And it's written, the text was written about 50 years after the end of the Civil War. And so the text is ruminating on the fact that 50 years later, so many things that Lincoln wished to accomplish were still left undone. And I find it so striking that now another 100 years have passed, and many of those very same issues remain. And Abraham Lincoln still walks at midnight saying, why are we still fighting about things that should have been fixed 150 years ago? And the music is so compelling in telling that ghostly story. As you listen to that, the one that follows that then, I think is an opportunity. We see it as an invitation. So that piece is going to be a bit like a scary ghost story telling us the dangers that we face, but then there's an opportunity to make a change. And the text of that last piece talks about being the movers and shakers. And the music, I think, is leading us in that direction. So hopefully it will inspire you as well to make a change in your circle and make a change in the world around you for the better. That's part of the decisions too, right? We have a choice to make in what we do. Well, it's almost time for us to go back inside. We've got just a couple of minutes. I meant to say one more thing. Abraham Lincoln, William Shermer told us that it was written in the 1970s. So he's been waiting for, I'm not going to do the math, but several decades to hear this piece performed. For one reason, it's not easy, and it's worth it, but it is definitely a challenge for us, and we're glad to tackle it tonight. So at long last. We want to make sure that you know about our next concert, October 29th. It's Thursday evening, 7:30, and that one is titled Black Voices Matter, featuring composers of color throughout history, and really excited about that opportunity. So make sure you're ready for that. Are there any questions from anyone in the audience? I don't know if we can even see the comments on live stream, so didn't even think about that. But any questions from anyone who's here about anything on the program tonight? Yes?
Dr. Bryson, when did you and Professor start picking out your music for this concert?
I'll let you start.
I started looking at it over the summer. narrowed it down to a certain amount of songs, and then went from there. Look at different things, how it's going to be programmed, the educational side of it as well. So this summer I started looking, and some of the things from last March. Also, we were supposed to do our one of our big concerts for the Rivertones is Spring Sing, and we were supposed to come back from break, and it was going to be the next week, so we were pretty prepared. So we took a couple of songs from that concert as well and to the fall concerts.
We did that with a couple of pieces in the other choirs as well. And I will say, typically I will choose music starting right after the end of the spring semester. But this year, because we were so uncertain about what was going to happen, I was literally picking repertoire the week before classes began and doing it thinking, are we actually going to start classes? I don't know if this is going to happen. And so I'm really glad that it did, and we were able to get everything in time. But it was a very late decision process this time.
What were each of your favorite pieces to work on?
That's a really hard question.
It's like asking your favorite child, right?
Yeah. I think there were sections in all of them that I liked a lot. There's like sections that I thought were kind of like the part that was really great to work on with the group. I think Bella's finale, because it was something new for the group, something we had never really taken on that type of music before. We've never done anything with rap or with real contemporary music. So I would say Bella.
For me, I think it was the Tarantella, and I hope that you'll understand why when you hear it. It's quite an iconic piece, and it's a big piece. And there are a couple of moments in there that still give me chills and or tears. So I'm going to hope that my mask covers that tonight, but it'll probably happen. It's just such a gorgeous moment toward the end. Any other questions? Yep.
What are some things you are excited about for the future of the choral department?
I think just getting to keep doing what we're doing, and we, coming into the semester, like I said, we weren't really sure if this was going to happen. And so we have constantly stressed, keep your distance, wash your hands, keep your mask on, do the things that you need to do to make sure this happens. And so I'm really in the mindset of I'm going to enjoy tonight, and then tomorrow night or Monday night when we have choral union rehearsal, I'm going to enjoy that, because we learned in the spring that might be the last thing we do, And then Tuesday after that, I'm going to enjoy you singers. I'm just going to take each day, and that's really what I'm looking for, is each day living for that moment.
I'm kind of on the same page with that. I am excited about this year's Spring Sing because it's called Girls Night Out, and it's all music of women composers or predominant women groups or soloists from beginning into like the 1920s all the way to the contemporary. So I'm really super excited about that concert coming up.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I think we are about out of time. Thankfully, a 30-minute intermission goes quickly when we have fun and good people to talk with. So thank you for joining us in this experiment. We've never done this before. We are all learning here. And we will take just a couple of minutes and get the new singers on stage. Hopefully they will not drown on their way across from Swisher. So we'll see you in just a moment on the live stream.